Hello and welcome back to Good Knit Kisses. I'm your host Kristen, and today we are going over the faux braid pattern. You can make this as a headband or scarf or cowl or whatever you like. It's going to be a flat panel and it will lace up this way by hand, but you're going to knit it, and when you knit it in a flat panel it's going to look like this. Now this photo and the pattern is courtesy of Denice Johnson, and she had had it up on our website as of January 30th, 2015. We're going to run through this pattern and show you how to make it. It basically just keeps on repeating. You can use this in multiple widths and make it your own unique for yourself. So let's get started on this. I will tell you that the original inspiration was from a Russian blog, which their inspiration was from seeing t-shirts that had that design and then looped it up. So it's not an original idea. It's a conversion, but it also is something that many people have done. So it's more of a technique that's just repeated over and over. So you can change the width and size and all that kind of stuff. So according to her pattern, we are going to use a medium weight yarn. She said to use something stiff. She used a Red Heart Super Saver yarn, the all-in-one knitting loom. This is a 3/8 inch loom. You could use another loom that will get you that gauge, or you could use another loom and yarn to suit your needs. You're going to need your tool, and then you're going to need a tapestry needle to seam it up in the end. So let's get started. Okay, here are some other alternate looms that you can use. This is a Cindywood. This is a Nifty Knitter. You can use a Boy, Hobby Lobby, loops and threads, anything you like. Okay, we're going to start our slip knot. I'm going to put it on our first peg. And we're going to double E-wrap. I'm going to double E-wrap cast on every peg. And if you skip ahead, this is peg 24, and then I've got 6 from the end. So these 12 in the middle are not going to have anything, and then you're going to have a stitch marker here. So finish casting on 24, and I'll meet you back in a moment. Okay, we've double E-wrap cast on 24 pegs. Now on her pattern, she calls to E-wrap the first peg and purl 22, and then you would E-wrap the last peg. We're actually going to flip her pattern, and I've already talked to Denice about this and she approves of it. This is actually going to speed it up for you. We're just going to flip those because this needs a stockinette and a purl just does it in the opposite direction. So we're going to purl the first and last pegs, and everything in between are going to be E-wrap. So purl peg 1 on this side, which is actually was 24. Go all the way down and E-wrap. Okay, we're going to the last peg, and we're going to purl this one. And if you click on the link below, we'll have the pattern and the revised one on there as well. So you can now knit these over. Now I'm going to show you knitting these over, but what you can do is once you get this pattern going, you can choose to leave some of these E-wraps going so you know where some of the purls are. It'll make sense to you as you go. Not everybody will do that, so if that doesn't make sense, then ignore what I just said. So basically I'm working these stitches, knitting them off, just lifting the bottom loop over the top. And I have my loom sitting on a loom holder. And I've done a review on that, so if you want the link, I'll put it down below for you. Okay. That completes row 1. Row 2, we are going to, instead of E-wrapping the first 6 pegs, we are going to purl the first 6 pegs. So purl up to the marker and at the marker. And if you want to make this pattern, if it's easier for you to purl in the opposite direction, you can make it the opposite way. So when you cast on, you would cast on from right to left. Okay, so when we get to the marker, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The marker is purled. And then everything in between the markers is going to be knit again. So we're going to E-wrap, which is a twisted knit stitch. Okay, and now we're going to purl these last 6 stitches. And you can change this to, say, like 18 pegs, and maybe you only do 4 or 5 pegs on the end for these garter stitches, is that's what you're creating, is garter stitches here. If you want to do the first peg as a slip stitch, that's your choice. I'm just following what the pattern says. Okay, so now that this is purl, this is considered a purl row. This is the end of row 2. And to knit, once these are knit over, that technically concludes row 2. So you are going to complete 2 more sets or 6 rows of what we just did. Okay, so you're going to go back through and then do 2 more sets of each, and we will pause our video and come back when you're done. Okay, we're on row 7, and we are going to purl this first peg and then go ahead and E-wrap these next 5 pegs, and then we'll continue on the basic bind off for the other part. So we're going to wrap this around, and we will purl, and then E-wrap the rest. So it's just like the other rows, except when we get down here, we're going to do a basic bind off, and I'll meet you back in a moment. Okay, so in order to bind off 12, we're going to bind off in between these markers here. We're going to knit or E-wrap this first peg. We're going to call this peg 1, and the one next to it we're calling peg 2, and this is just for bind off purposes. So knit that one off, move 2 to 1, and knit that off, and move the 1 over, and we're going to call that 1 now. Now after those, we'll just, all the ones next to it, we just wrap the number 2 peg only, not the 1. So wrap 2, knit off, move over, knit off, move over, okay, wrap 2, knit off, move over to 1, knit off, move over. Okay, and you're going to continue binding these off until you have got all of the stitches off in between the markers. And pause your video, and we'll meet you back in a moment. Okay, after binding off these pegs here, the last 6 pegs, what we're going to do is E-wrap and then purl the last one. So the end of row 7, this last one is going to get purled. Okay, we've completed row 7. Now we're going to work our way back this way, and we're going to purl these 6 just as we would on a row 2. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then we need to cast on these 12 pegs. So we're just going to double E-wrap each peg and knit over to cast on, just as we did in the beginning, working the same way for cast on that we did originally. Go ahead and cast these on and then finish purling the rest of the row. Okay, pause your video and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. Okay, you've just completed rows 1 through 8, and then you'll have this nice cord here in the middle. Okay, so it's now cast on here. This cord here will be curling. Okay, it's supposed to do that. The edges here are going to be in a garter stitch. So you're going to complete this rows 1 through 8 until you have 17 of these repeats. Okay, and then I will meet you back after you're done. We will bind off and put it together. Okay, I'm at the end of my 17 repeats, and it is measured 20 inches from here down to the end here. And if you need to add a couple more to get the length that you want, be sure and subtract a couple of inches from the circumference of the head that you want. That way you're going to get a nice snug fit. So we're ready to bind off, and I would do the basic bind off, but just make sure that you're using an E-wrap so that it's nice and loose. If you do something too tight, like just knitting right across, it's going to it's not going to have the same stretch as your original beginning end. So go ahead and start binding that off just like you would on these other stitches that we did previous. Okay, so after you've got it off the loom, we'll meet you back in a minute. Pause your video and we'll meet right back up. Go ahead and cut this, leaving enough tail that I can use that end for sewing. Go ahead and pull that on through and pull this off the loom. Okay, so I have pulled this off of the loom, and this is the front of the loom, and then the back looks like this, and this is the purl side, and so you have these nice cords. So we're actually going to do this on the reverse. So here's the assembly. So we've got it turned over. This is our first cord here, and we're going to take it and we're going to twist it. Okay, so we're going to twist it around like this. I'm just gonna flip it around. Okay, and so we have a little hole here, and then we're going to pull the next cord up through here, and then we're going to twist it the same direction. Okay, and then pull with our fingers and take the next one and twist it in the same direction, and we're just going to keep going. So take it and pull it and twist it around. Okay, so this is what it should look like from the back, and this is the top part. So these are all nice and turned over, and so now you can stitch it up on top, or you can put a button here, nice large button here, and then sew these together here. So let's go ahead and sew these pieces together. I've got my long strand that I had finished when binding off. This little tail we can weave in a little bit later, and we're going to take this and go from one side to the next. Just go into that first stitch and then go into this first stitch over here again to reinforce. Go all the way in, and then we're just going to whip stitch and go around these stitches all the way down the piece, and just go on the very end. Okay, and I'm just going to come back through these stitches here. And then I'll tack this one down, and then we'll put a button here to bring it all together. And don't worry if this is kind of ruffling out, it's going to stretch out when it's actually on someone's head. So we're just going to pull back through a couple of these stitches here in the back. So go ahead and put your button on and put the placement in where you want it, and then tie that off. Cut it and you will be done. Here we are. A nice faux braid, and you could do this multiple widths apart, or really long and make an infinity scarf, whatever you like to do. So thank you for joining me at Good Knit Kisses. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Have a great day and happy looming. Bye-bye.